Thank you so much, Noelle, and thank you everyone for coming today. I know that this is a work day for everyone, but hopefully what you're going to learn today is going to take you to work smarter and get a lot more things done, and most importantly, deliver customer value. So my session today is on the foundations and the future of Agile, and really how it pertains to ensuring we're building customer value for all of your customers. So I'm Moreira. As mentioned, I have been doing work with Vistaprint. I'm the Master Agile Coach there, helping us transform to Agile. And much like it takes a team to put on a conference, it takes a team to have Agile occur in their organization. I also have a blog, so if you want to learn more, you can go to the Agile Adoption blog of the latest of what's being discussed in the Agile field. As Noelle mentioned, I am a publisher or author of books. My most recent book is The Agile Enterprise, but I've done a number of other books over the time. The reason why I'm focusing on the Agile Enterprise is one thing you'll notice as you adopt Agile is it has to happen everywhere for it to be effective. All parts of the organization. So again, welcome to the foundations and future of Agile. The goal today is to give you a vision of where you can go in your organization. Let me ask you a question. Who do you want to be? Each and every one of you has great potential. You can be more than who you are today. How many believe that? Excellent. And the reason you're here is because you are making a commitment to your own growth and development. Is that true? Raise your hand. Awesome. The reality is there's thousands of other people who are not. So be proud of who you are today and the fact that you're here learning and growing. Agile is occurring in many other parts of the world, and my goal, our goal, should be to potentially have it happen big here. So the question is, when you look in this mirror, what do you see? What I'm hoping you see is a pride of lions. Now, what does that mean to Tunisia? Where do we want to be as a country? How do you want to help Tunisia become the pride of lions? There is great opportunity here. Tunisia has been fortunate to be part of many great civilizations contributing to the world. Now it's your opportunity to contribute to Tunisia and make it a leader in the world. We're fortunate that really not that many countries have really grasped strongly to Agile, and Agile can actually make you successful, make you more successful, because the focus is on customer value. Again, customer value, and if we can bring that, we can help and hope to make Tunisia a great country in business, in education, and in industry. How many believe that can happen? Awesome, awesome. However, let's start from ground zero. One of the things that often gets misinterpreted when people start to think Agile is they first start to implement some mechanics, right? We're going to do a daily stand-up. We're going to do some sprint planning. And there's nothing wrong with that, but one of the things I want to enforce and reinforce is you have to lead with a mindset. Because if you're doing something as simple as a daily stand-up where I'm in informing my team members what I did yesterday, what I'm doing today, and impediments, but I don't understand what the purpose of that is, that there's a strong communication reason for doing that. And more importantly, we understand if there's impediments that are blocking our speed of delivery. Because that's really the crux of the daily stand-up. It's not just to stand around and just share. It's that I'm listening to you. I hear what you're doing today, and I might be able to help you out today if I have spare time. If there's impediments, I might be able to help you remove them so we can move faster. So do you understand that difference? And we're going to go into the difference a little bit more, but it's very important that you lead with the mindset. So let's ask the question. With teams that I have worked with, or organizations that claim to be agile, when I ask them the simple question of what is agile, do you believe that most of them get the answer wrong? So what I'd like you to do is take out a pen and just write what you think Agile is. Write the answer of what you think Agile is. Come on, pull out a pen, paper, or have the thought in your mind, what do you think Agile is? Think through what you've heard from people. Think what you've read. And what I'd like to do is have 3 or 4 people call out. What do they think Agile is? Anyone? What's that? A culture. Yes. What else? Go ahead. Just shout it out. A mindset. Awesome. A process. Response to change. Yes. Adjust to customer expectations. Business solutions. Values and principles. Self-learning. Yeah. A tool. Adapting to change. What's that? Complex projects. Good. Lots of great answers here. Interestingly enough, one person answered it, and it's actually fairly interesting that there isn't much more written about it, because what is Agile? It is actually nothing more and nothing less than a set of values and principles. That is literally all it is. And if you look at one of the handouts that I shared with you, you'll see Agile values on one side and Agile principles on the other. And we're going to use the Agile principles as part of our activity here momentarily. But I'd like to ensure you take this back with you and share it with your team and your colleagues. But it's not just values and principles for any reason. It's with a focus of delivering value to our customers. Value to our customers. So, when someone says, hey, why are you doing Agile? Hopefully they're saying because we want to deliver value to our customers. And if you ask them, what is Agile? What's the answer? You can do better than that. What's the value? What is it? Values and principles. Awesome. So let's take a quick look at the values. If everybody could pull out their handout, and feel free to take notes if you don't understand something. And we're going to walk through them relatively briefly so you understand what this means. So you'll notice here, individuals and interactions over process and tools. So first I want to make clear to people that over does not mean instead of. Over just means put more emphasis here. So what this is saying, how many people have used a tool or process that forces you to do something a certain way? Raise your hand. So what Agile tries to get you to do is maybe let's start with how people might interact first, as opposed to just inheriting or accepting a process or tool. And one of the biggest challenges in the industry is people will immediately accept the concept of big upfront waterfall planning. How many have heard of that? Big upfront waterfall planning. And the challenges with this is it makes you believe that you have to be certain that you know what you're actually going to build, when in fact the world changes all the time and we need to adapt. So that's individuals and interactions over process and tools. The next is working product over comprehensive documentation. How many of you believe our customers buy our internal comprehensive documentation? Or do they buy the working product? Yeah. So it's very important to understand this so you can balance it correctly. This does not say you should not have documentation. Okay, so if you hear anyone in the Agile community say, Agile means no documentation, then you need to have them call me. Because you still need documentation, such as user requirements, right? So there are still some level of documentation that you need. In addition, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So how many people here believe we can totally remove contract negotiation? Raise your hand. So the reality is, in most companies, you need some sort of contract negotiation, but what we've learned in Agile is it's better to have a relationship with the customer, right? And how many here believe you are a customer? Raise your hand. All of you should be raising your hand. Have all of you bought a cell phone? You are a customer. How do you like to be treated, right? You want to see, it would be great if people would collaborate with you. If you are forced to use a tool, wouldn't it be great if they actually talked to you before they developed it? And that's what we're going for here. The next is customer collaborators responding to change over following a plan. So is everybody good with this, responding to change over following a plan? What do you guys think about that? Anyone? Make sense? Anyone else? Why does it make sense? Yes. It makes sense, but you have to secure the scope. So here's where Agile comes in very handy. Do you think we can always know the scope up front? Oftentimes no, because the market keeps changing. So we have to have some sense of where we're going, the direction, and then learn what the scope is along the way. So in this case, it's not saying you shouldn't have a plan. It's just saying don't try to have it all up front. Because one of the things, if you're doing Agile well, you will have planning occurring all the time. Okay, every iteration, every sprint, but that's after you learn things. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to the Agile principles on the back. This is where I'm going to ask each and every one of you to think whether you believe each of the principles. And I don't expect you to believe all of them right up front, because Agile is a journey. So when I ask you to go share this back with your teams and colleagues, don't expect them to agree with all of these up front, because Agile is a journey and it may take time to understand why you might believe something. Okay, how many have heard of Roman voting before? This means I believe it. This means the person's going into the Colosseum and be eaten by the lions. right? And then in between means, okay, he can wait in the wings. No, but seriously, this means this is good. I'm not quite sure I believe it, and here I don't believe it. Okay, I want to see everybody. Put your hands up. Say, I believe it. Okay, say, I believe it. Awesome. Say, I'm not sure. And say, nah, don't believe it. Awesome, awesome. Great. So now let's look at each of the Agile principles. The very first one is satisfy customers with valuable products. How many think you believe this is a good principle? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I got a lot of believes. Anyone sideways? No sideways. Anyone down? Great, we're done with the conference now. Let's go. No, I'm just kidding. Let's go to the next one. So satisfy customer with valuable products is really the whole intent behind Agile, right? If we're not doing it for our customers, the question is, who are we doing it for? So that's an important takeaway when you go back to your colleagues and your teams. The next one is welcoming change to requirements. Welcoming change. This means all the time. Anytime, you should welcome change. This could be at the end, towards the end, you need to welcome change. Okay, on the count of 3, we're going to vote. Do you believe this? You're not sure, or you're down? 1, 2, 3. Go up. Okay, I see a lot of ups. If you're sideways, keep your hand up. Great, there's some few sideways, and anyone completely down? Okay, well, I see 2 downs, 3 downs. So much like Agile is a journey, I'm not here to convince you that this is something you should believe. However, what I will tell you for those who are sideways and down, the word here is welcome. It doesn't mean you have to make the change. Then you do. Thank you. But that's important because Agile, this is gets to the mindset, they want you always to be open to the new idea. It doesn't mean you have to do it, okay? Because you need to compare the value of the new idea or the new requirement with the existing requirements. But what happens if you are not even open or welcoming to them? Do you think you will get the ideas or the new requirements? No. People won't give them to you. And some of those ideas could be very valuable to your company. So, with that different mindset, different definition, for those of you who had sideways or down, does it change it at all? Yes, I see lots of changes. Awesome. And this is why it's important to have this discussion about the Agile values and principles. The next one, frequent and continuous delivery. This means I have the ability to frequently and continuously deliver our products or revisions of our products or updates to our products. How many believe that? 1, 2, 3. Okay, any sideways? Any downs? Okay. Well, the operative word here is you have the ability. You don't have to do it, but you have the ability, because the moment the customer says, I would love that if you made it available, you want to have the ability to deliver. Okay? The next, business and development working together. What do you guys think about that? Having your business partner sitting with your developers, or they're working together regularly. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Any sideways on that? Okay, I see at least one brave person is willing to say sideways. And be brave. It's like, hey, if you don't believe it, it's cool. We need to better understand it. And so what is the reason why you're thinking this is sideways? You can't just put anyone with the customer. So what this is trying to help you do is you have the ability to keep them close or in continuous contact, because if a developer doesn't quite understand what the customer wants, you have someone from the business to help them out, to be able to answer the question. Because oftentimes, we'll go into organizations and we learn when we ask the developers, do you know why? What's the business reason for building this? Oftentimes, they don't know. How many people think if you were to go back to your office and ask all your developers or creators if they know why they're building what they're building, that they'll know? How many people believe that they'll know for sure? How many think they might not know? Raise your hand. So that's where this principle is very important. What we're trying to get to is we want all the makers, creators, and developers to know why they're building what they're building. Because if they do, they might actually build something that's more valuable for that customer. The next one, bear with me, is motivated individuals who are trusted. This one's kind of a simple one. Who likes to be a worker who's a motivated individual who is trusted? You agree with that? Who thinks that's a bad idea? Raise your hand. Okay, I know, that was kind of a gimme, wasn't it? So what this tries to do is, but how many of you actually believe that you're in a company that totally believes in motivation and they trust you? How many believe you've seen companies that don't do that? Raise your hand. Okay. And so for as simple as this sounds, because if you know, the more motivated each of you are, what happens when you're motivated? Anyone? What happens when you're motivated? You'll work more. What's that? And you'll work better. You'll work as if you own it. It's very different. How many have rented a car before? How many have rented a car? Do you always treat that rental car very well? Or do you try to accelerate and go super fast? Okay, Slim definitely accelerates and goes too fast. However, when it's your own car, you treat it better. So if you can get the people in your company to feel that they own the work, they will work harder, they will work smarter, they'll work as if they own the product, service, whatever that item is. The next is face-to-face communications. How many believe that face-to-face communications is a good thing? Going to do both? Both hands ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, you can go sideways, you can go down. How many people have their hands sideways or down? Okay, there's a couple of people. Now, why are you saying sideways? There's a microphone coming behind you.
Because sometimes it doesn't work for everyone. Some people, they don't like face-to-face communication. They prefer other ways of communication.
Okay, so
it
some
depends on the personality of people.
Okay, so some people prefer other ways.
Yeah.
Anyone else who is sideways or down, have a thought. We have one person over here. What's your reason? What's that? Can cause conflicts. Sometimes it's not possible. How many of you work in a distributed company where you have parts of your company all around the world? Right? So sometimes face-to-face may not be possible. What this is saying, however, is it doesn't mean it's the only way to communicate. It's just saying it's the best way. Do you understand? So sometimes you will use email because there's a reason to use email. I just had a dialogue with you, and I'm going to then use email to confirm what I thought we agreed to. Do you see that? However, do you think using email is a good way to negotiate an agreement? No, face to face. And so this is what this is trying to say. To really get to the essence of communication, face to face is most likely the best way. And by the way, we've done studies to prove that out. However, it doesn't mean that's the only way. Okay, and then in distributed companies, you can still do face to face with video conferencing and things like that. So you can have that rapid interaction to get to an agreement or a design or an idea. The next, working products as a measure of progress. Working products as a measure of progress. How many think that's a good idea? Working products as a measure of progress. Thank you. I'm glad you guys are listening. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, who's sideways on this? We have one person who's sideways over here. Anyone else? Okay, explain why you think you're sideways.
Sometimes there are some challenges with time saving and also challenges with the productions of the final product, which can impact the customer's experience or end users of the product.
Okay, so that's not unreasonable, but is there another measure of progress that you'd rather use? And so this is really the key. From a customer perspective, remember, all of you are customers. If I were to say, if I'm Apple, and I say, hey, I have a new idea for a phone, but I have plenty of documentation, so you should be very happy. Would that make you happy, or would it make you happier if you actually saw the phone? If you saw the phone, right? Because that's really what customers want to see. There is still, though, going to be other measures that will help you get there, like verification measures. Is it testable? Things like that. Sustainable pace. So what sustainable pace means is each team is going to work at a pace that is comfortable with them. So if 40, 45 hours works with them, that's going to be the pace. However, what happens when you work 70 hours a week? Anyone? Burnout. So that's not a sustainable pace. So how many of you believe sustainable pace is a good idea? 1, 2, 3. How many think sustainable pace is not a good idea? You'd rather work people to the ground, or you'd rather work 80 hours a week. Because if you'd rather work 80 hours a week, please come to me. I have a job for you. No, I'm just kidding. What's that? Okay. The next is technical excellence. So what this means in any kind of field you're in, marketing, business, education, industry, you have excellence practices. There is a better way to do things, and you know what that is, and you strive for it. How many think this is a good idea? 1, 2, 3. Okay. I don't see any sideways on this. Good. The next principle is simplicity. Simplicity. What this means is, not only do I know what I'm going to build, I'm also going to know what I'm not going to build. So what this is trying to say is don't overbuild. How many here use Microsoft Word? Raise your hand. How many of you believe you use all the features of Microsoft Word? Raise your hand. How many people believe you might use 20% of all the features of Microsoft Word? How many think you might use less than 20? Yes. So what this is trying to tell you is oftentimes products are overbuilt. Probably If they would build a version of Microsoft Word that had 20% of the features that we all used, that's all we'd need. That would be all we need. So how many people believe in simplicity? Sorry, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's it. I guess that was an easy. Oh, any sideways? No sideways. Good, awesome. And then self-organizing teams. Now this one can be a little tricky one. Noel just gave us an example of a team that was allowed to self-form, which meant that the managers didn't have an opinion to decide it. Okay? Self-organizing, what it means is, if you were to give me a list of requirements, us as a team would be able to decide who does the work and how we should do it. Okay? So we would get to decide. You decide which one you want to do, you decide which one you do, and so forth. And then we would decide how to design it, how to develop it, and no one from outside our team would help. Or could help, but not tell us. How many people believe in that idea? 1, 2, 3. Is anyone sideways on this? Okay, one person sideways. Tell us why you're sideways. Just speak up. Because some people can't organize themselves. One of the things I've noticed, so that could be true, but one of the things I've noticed is when you give people the chance, it actually can work out. You may still have to be an advisor or a coach to help, but they can eventually get to it. Okay? What's that? The chance and the time. Exactly. Sometimes we don't give the time. And this is the importance of having an Agile coach to help teams gain the experience of learning how to do it. Yes. Sometimes you need maturity. Absolutely. And this is where the guidance and advice and the coaching are going to be needed. Okay, I heard him say sometimes you need the authority to impose the change. Yeah. So, I'm not trying to convince you 100%, but I will say that once you give them the chance and some coaching and some time, they can make the trip. Okay? Now, I do want to be clear about something. Not everyone can make the journey to Agile. What that means is some folks have a very hard time accepting this very different way of working and mindset. Is anyone here potentially familiar with someone who might have a hard time moving to Agile? Raise your hand. Okay. And the more you think, the more you'll find people like this. And that's okay. There should not be a judgment. They've learned to do things in a certain way, and we need to respect that. They're just not going to be as effective in an Agile world. And then the last principle is reflection for improvement. How many people think it's a good idea to reflect for improvement? 1, 2, 3. Okay, anyone sideways on this? Ah, rats. No, I'm just kidding. So reflection for improvement is important because you want to be able to think back on what you just did, and this gets to self-organizing teams. After like 2 weeks of trying it, they may learn that there are certain things they need to change or certain things they need to learn in order to do it effectively. Okay? So as a takeaway, again, here's your Agile principles and values. Please take this and share that with your team. Feel free, in fact, to do the same exercise that I just did, but do it with your employees, your colleagues, or your team. How many are going to commit to doing that? Raise your hand. Okay? A few. Come on. How many are going to commit to doing that? Give it a try. Seriously, give it a try. Because oftentimes, as I said, your job is not to get them to agree to everything. It's to begin the dialogue, to help them to begin the journey. Okay? So, we just covered the values, the principles, but what about focusing on the delivery of value for the customer? So, introducing the Agile Customer Value-Driven Engine. As we work on the Customer Value-Driven Engine, we need to think about who we are building this for, and that, of course, is 1, 2, 3. Say it with me. Who are we doing this for? 1, 2, 3. The customers. Awesome. So we need to be hyper-customer focused. So, who are our customers? This is actually very important because oftentimes we have an incorrect definition of what a customer is. A customer is the person who pays for the product or service. If you have someone internal that you're serving, they're a stakeholder. Okay, it's an internal version of a customer. But from a company perspective, it's the person who pays. If you're building products, it's the person who pays for your products. If you're in a university or college, it's the students who are paying for the education. If it's a wireless service, it's the people who are paying for that wireless service. Also, the second definition is a customer has a choice. So 2 definitions of customer. The first is they pay. The second is they have a choice. That is the definition of a customer. And yes, again, you will have stakeholders because a customer will have a choice between product A and product B. And of course, C, D, E, F, G, right? In addition, the customer can make your pie bigger. That means your amount of money bigger from a small piece to a larger piece of the pie. Okay? Any questions on the customer? Who is the customer? Have you heard the word customer used differently in your organization? Raise your hand. Yeah, some of you have. Okay? So, we now know who the customers are. Now we have to build our engine. So, there's another handout that you've all received. It's called The Mechanics for a Customer Value-Driven Engine on the one side and the Mindset on the other. So feel free to pull this out as we go through this. The mechanics for a customer value-driven engine are these 5 parts. Let's go visit each one. The first part is the enterprise Kanban. The enterprise Kanban. What that really means is, if you're familiar with a Kanban board for your team, because that's 99% of Kanban boards are built for teams, this is actually for the whole enterprise. In other words, you have a good idea of what are the top ideas or products or services being worked on that everyone in the enterprise can see. How many of you believe you know you could actually be very clear on what the top ideas or products and services that are being built in this quarter or in this month? Raise your hand. Okay. The reason why not many hands are up is if you don't have a sense of what are the top ideas, how can you be sure you're working on one of the top ideas of the enterprise? So you don't know. You could be working on a medium priority or low priority because everyone's going to say it's a high priority, right? How many have heard everything's a high priority? Raise your hand. Yes, everybody, right? And so what we're trying to get out of is we're not just going to say it's a priority. We're going to figure out whether it's the top priorities. And there's going to usually be a number of them. But you want to know, can you connect your work to the top priorities? By doing that with an enterprise Kanban, it can make it transparent and visible. In addition, there's this concept called a customer value canvas. In other terms, it's a lean canvas. And what this is, it's a very short way. Instead of a 30-page business plan, this is a one-page canvas that can help you understand the idea better for that product or service. And you'll notice that there's a place to document the opportunity, there's a place to document risks and assumptions, there's a place to document personas. So personas, customer personas, are who the customer is. Like, who are you building this for? And that's very important. Because do you know that you could actually build something for one customer and other customers may not like it? How many think if you're building something for someone who's under the age of 21, it could be kind of different if it's for someone who's 55? It could still service both. Like, do you think there are cell phones that are better suited for elderly people than for young people? At the very least, for an elderly person, you might want to have bigger text, bigger font on the screen, right? Then we also have cost of delay. Now, there's going to be some of these terms that you're like, Mario, I'm not particularly, I don't particularly understand that term or concept. And I'm giving you a little bit of definition, but I want you to think about, if you don't know it very well, maybe it's something you can learn about more fully later on. And one of those is often cost of delay. What cost of delay means is I'm delaying business value. So in this case, between here and here, between here and here, here and here, I'm not building it. So in other words, how many have gotten the new iPhone 8? Right? It's too expensive. But the moment it comes out, if you don't have your accessory ready for it, someone else can capture that market share. Let's say a case for the new iPhone 8. So what this is saying, let's say I don't have the accessory ready for it. And it gets released here, but I don't actually have it ready until here. That means someone else can make a lot of money off of cases if your company is late in releasing cases. So it's the cost of delaying value and making money from the customer. Okay? The next is incremental practices. How many here have heard of story mapping? Okay, a few of you. What I want you to do is, if you haven't heard of it, beside incremental practices, write the word story mapping. What story mapping allows you to do is understand what it is you need to build from a customer perspective, and then only slice an increment of it to start to prove whether it's valuable to the customer or not. What this prevents you from doing is, instead of building the whole thing and learning that the customer doesn't find it valuable, it's better to cut an increment and have them use it or view it or experience it to find out if it's of value. And the last ingredient is feedback loops. So who do you think we want to get feedback from? Anyone? Customers, product owners, could be stakeholders, could be team members, it could be automation testing. But who do you think is the number one feedback we want to get from? Customers, right? So feedback loops include all of the things you said. Customer, though, being the most important. And why is the customer the most important? Because they pay and they have a choice. And because they have a choice, you want to make sure there's feedback loops occurring all along the way. So the moment you think you have some idea of requirements, do you think that might be a good time to talk to customers and get some feedback? What do you guys think? Or should I wait till I deliver it? And so what you're trying to think of here is feedback loops can occur as early as you have some idea of the requirements, because you want to learn from the customer whether you are directionally correct. Because the more directionally correct you are, the more likely you're going to make money from the customers. Okay? So we just talked about the customer and the customer engine. There's actually another piece, and it ties back to the Agile values and principles. And that is the mindset. The Agile mindset is to ensure you're building the right culture and behaviors. So if you turn the card over, you'll have those pieces with you. I'm not going to go through all of the pieces, but I'm going to go through some important ones. So some of the pieces we went through are Agile values and principles already. So that's part of the mindset to ensure we're delivering customer value. A few other pieces are incremental thinking. Okay? Here's the reason why you want to have a mindset. So in other words, you want to be totally open to building things incrementally. Let's say we have an idea and we decide to move forward with the idea. If you are doing big batch, upfront waterfall thinking, you would just build it. Once you have the idea, you would just start to build it. How many have witnessed that before in their work? Right? You just start to build it. Incremental thinking says, hey, after we get that first increment, instead of just moving forward, what we're going to do is get some customer feedback and adapt. Now here, all of a sudden, because of customer feedback, we're adapting. We get more customer feedback and we adapt. We get more customer feedback and we adapt. We get more customer feedback and we adapt. Till eventually, we're releasing. And in this case, we're actually more likely to hit the target of customer value. Now, I want you to observe, though, what the distance is between here and here. If we were to just to go big up front thinking, we would have missed the target by a lot. And in this case, there'd be a huge gap between what we actually delivered and what the customer wanted. And by the way, did you know that statistically, over a third projects completely fail, completely. Customers have no interest in it. And of those that we do deliver and we consider successful, what percentage of the functionality that we're building do you think never gets used? Anyone? 80%. What else? Anyone else? I hear you whispering, but I know your voices are louder. 90%. Oh boy, you guys are 70. Okay, the answer is 50%. 50% of products that are successful, products and services that are successful, never get used. And another 15% rarely get used. So this is another reason why this incremental thinking is so important. And so this would be a good takeaway to come back to your office and say, if you're seeing a big upfront, one big batch approach, you may want to share with them the concept of incremental thinking. The next term is psychological safety. Psychological safety. The definition of psychological safety is how much disagreement is welcome in the office. So in other words, if you guys were my manager, would I feel safe to go up to the manager and disagree with an idea they may have? Now, I still need to disagree respectfully, but do I believe I can do it without any retribution? How many believe that you have psychological safety in your office? Raise your hand. Okay, a few of you. How many wish they had psychological safety in their company? Yeah. And so this is a relatively new concept in the Agile field, where in order to really have strong teams, empowered teams, safe teams, you need to have psychological safety. Okay? And the way to go about the journey of psychological safety is start to expose some vulnerability. So if I'm a manager, I may start exposing some vulnerability. So if I'm exposing vulnerability, then teams are more likely to expose vulnerability. Or have teams start it with each other, because then they'll feel safer to bring up new ideas and safer to expose where there are problems. One of the big issues we see with companies that are not psychologically safe is no one wants to share the problems. And when you don't share the problems, those are often the biggest impediments to delivering customer value and also for speeding up delivery. Okay? And then we're going to touch on self-organizing teams. As mentioned, this is where teams can self-select the work they will do and no one assigns them to work. Okay, this is actually a very good goal. And when we do this, as mentioned, when teams feel ownership, they're much more likely to work harder and work smarter. So, who do you want to be? You have this opportunity. When you look in this mirror, do you see a kitten or do you see a lion? Sometimes one of each, right? You have the opportunity here in Tunis and Tunisia of really jump-starting the Agile movement here. You already have a lot of people who have the mindset. You can help yourself by learning more, by advancing your future. And what do you want for the future of Tunisia? Would you like to see a more innovative and creative Tunisia? And what is your role in getting you there? What is your role? What is the role you want to play into building a greater Tunisia? So I want to leave you with this. So I've shared with you many Agile values, principles, mechanics, and mindset. What I'd like you to do is look over the two handouts and pick at least one thing you are going to explore further. Look at your cards. Pick out one thing you are going to explore further and circle it. One thing. That you are going to explore further. And we're here to help you with that as well. So what I'd like to do now is, anyone here who is planning to explore one more thing, can you make a commitment to explore one more thing? Again, it's for your benefit and the benefit of Tunisia. Raise your hand if you're willing to make that commitment. Raise your hand. Don't be shy. Awesome. It's so good to see so many hands up. Because ultimately, what's the future you want? What's the future for yourself? And what's the future for your company and country? With that, thank you all. I hope you guys learned a lot here. And I hope you take something back to your company and you become the leader you want to be. Thank you.